Chapter 26. So what's the plan? Noguchi didn't answer. She continued to take deep breaths, her eyes closed. The giant alien stood at her side, still enough to be a statue. Its face was turned to watch the woman, but the odd mask it wore covered most of any expression it may have had. Given the faces of some of the dead ones who'd lost their masks in the stampede, Scott was just as happy about that. Ugly bastards. He stepped away from the door and started to pace. He was feeling pretty goddamn tired of not knowing what was going on. Look, lady, I realize you're under a lot of stress, but you do have some idea of what we're going to do, don't you? The stampede didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to, obviously. Now if I were you, I'd start worrying about what? Noguchi had opened her eyes to reveal an icy anger. If you were me, you'd worry about what? He shut up. Then, well, shit. What's next? Lay off, Scott. Tom sounded bone tired. Scott looked at his friend and felt his anger spark higher. Tom looked worse than he had before. Whatever he'd picked up was making him really sick. The younger pilot had fallen into a chair and rested his head on a console. His body shook. Scott stopped in front of Noguchi and lowered his voice. My friend is sick, okay? We have to do something. Noguchi smiled softly, humorlessly. No shit. But unless you or your friend come up with some brilliant revelation, I suggest you shut up. I'll listen to you when you've got something to say. She closed her eyes again. The spark fizzled. She was a cold bitch, but he didn't have any ideas to contribute. And he sure as fuck didn't want to lead this little party. Right. Sorry, okay? I don't feel so good. It's been a bad day. Noguchi nodded, then walked towards an ops panel. The colonists made it out safely. That's something. We've got power here, and supplies. We can hold out for a while here and come up with something. There's a screen still on over here, Tom said. Scott and Noguchi both walked over to where the alien pilot sat. The giant remained at the door, motionless. Across the top of the small console was a series of numbers. That's my code, said Noguchi. It's a hyperstat from Corporation Substation. The ether drive got through. She leaned in front of Tom and punched a few keys excitedly. Scott blinked. Ether driver? What the hell was that? Some new equipment the company was too cheap to put on their ship. Shit. He read over her shoulder. Attention, Machiko Noguchi, Prosperity Wells. From BAE 683. Takashi Chigusa, New Osaka. RE possible XT specimens. Take steps to preserve all specimens of species described in Revner's report. Nearest marine ship will enter area at approximately 5:14. Keep BAE 683 apprised. Await further instructions. YFN T6 77074/TC. Noguchi slammed her fist against the screen and stalked over to a chair. She plopped down and put one hand to her forehead. 5 weeks, she said softly. All we have to do is survive for 5 weeks. As if on cue, there was another slam to the lock. A creature screamed, the sound muffled through the thick metal. And preserve for them all specimens, she said. She laughed. It wasn't a funny noise. Christ, don't lose it, lady. We need you. It was looking hopeless. Noguchi had never felt so frustrated in her life, or so angry. There was nothing she could do. Well, fuck this. Conover had started pacing again. I say we scram out of here and join the colonists. She looked up at the red-faced pilot and shook her head. Yeah? And how long before the bugs run out of food and head into the desert looking for more? Conover dropped his gaze and said nothing. I don't know about you two, but I'm tired of fucking with all of this. I want to finish this, and I want to finish it now. She wasn't sure how, but there had to be a way. Conover snorted. Sure, great. You're going to burn down the whole complex. Strandberg coughed loudly. That wouldn't work. Too many of them would... He coughed again. Would get away. It'd have to be something fast. Noguchi started running off possibilities in her head. Maybe they could formulate some kind of bomb or gas. Conover jerked his gaze at Broken Tusk. Why don't we ask the Hulk over there? Maybe he's got a death ray or something. Strandberg shook his head. I'm serious. I think Miss Noguchi had the right idea with the stampede. Crush them. Crush them like bugs. He broke into a fit of coughing. Noguchi looked at Strandberg with sympathy. He really didn't look well, and he had at least tried to be helpful. The pilot had regained his wind and raised one hand weakly. Something big enough to take out the complex and the ship at once. Conover interrupted angrily. Forget it! I can't even believe you'd bring it up. Noguchi stood and faced the asshole pilot. Don't hold out on me, Conover. If you know something that might stop these things... Strandberg started coughing again. Conover glared at her and jabbed a finger in her general direction. Look, I have some shares in this little investment along with everyone else. There's nothing we can do, okay? Strandberg tried to stand up and fell to the floor. His coughing suddenly turned to hoarse choking sounds, and he spasmed and convulsed, clutched at his chest. Heart attack or epileptic seizure? Noguchi took one step towards him and felt a hand on her shoulder. Broken Tusk. He hissed and hefted his spear. Conover rushed to his friend's side and then stepped back at the sight of blood on Strandberg's abdomen. Tommy! Noguchi gasped. The convulsing pilot screamed again and again, and at the same time there was the sound of ripping, shredding, the sound of flesh parting. A creature the size of Noguchi's forearm burst through Strandberg's chest in a spray of red, dripping with blood and slime. The animal looked surreal, its head dominated by rows of teeth. It coiled its long, fleshy-coloured body in the frame of Strandberg's bloody ribcage, and screeched at them, and jumped.